Hello everyone, this is part 37 of What If Naruto Was the Devil Ninja, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Devil Ninja. Kiba was not used to fighting with two swords. Dual wielding was not a skill he had cultivated. That said, as he and Siegfried fought against each other, Kiba gripped a sword in each hand as he tried to withstand the overwhelming power of his opponent. What is this? Siegfried laughed as he S-grammed into Kiba's demonic sword, shattering it and forcing him to make another one. These swords are pathetic. Ha ha. Do you really think you can defeat me with such lousy weapons and shoddy swordsmanship? Kiba said nothing, not because he had nothing to say, but because it took all of his concentration to avoid being K. He dodged attacks that came in from the left and right, from above and below. Siegfried was not dual-wielding like him. He was tri-wielding. He gripped Gram tightly in his left hand, a light sword in his right, and Nathung, a demon sword that was sharp enough to see through almost any known substance, in the dragon arm protruding from his back. With 3 blades to contend with, Kiba found himself on the defensive. This is utterly ridiculous, Siegfried spat as he his light sword into Kiba's holy sword. It didn't shatter, but the strength behind the blow sent him skidding backward. Given that you are the swordsman who defeated Fried Selzen, I assumed you would be strong, but I guess Fried was just weak. You're not even a challenge. Kiba gritted his teeth at the insult. Bending his knees, he pushed off the ground and used his speed, which was far superior to a normal human's, to turn his body into a literal streak. He ran around Siegfried, hoping to attack the man from his blind spot. Yet when he attacked, the dragon arm welding Nathung intercepted him. Kiba could only gnash his teeth together as Nathung threw his demonic sword with ease. A weak attack like that won't work on me. Siegfried spun around and swung Gram from overhead. Kiba dodged, but the destructive power sent him flying backwards. I have no blind spots, you fool. My twice critical is a subspecies that lets me grow this dragon arm out of my back. Not only does it double my power, but this arm also acts as a sensor. After all, there is no point in having an arm growing out of my back if I can't sense attacks coming at me from behind. Now that he had a bit of breathing room, Kiba was able to finally speak. So you basically have no blind spots. Is that what you are telling me? That is it exactly. Grimacing, Kiba reassessed his strategy. If he couldn't defeat Siegfried from attacking his blind spots, then he would need to use the greatest advantage he had to attack from multiple directions at once. Sword birth. SA hand onto the ground, Kiba put power into his sacred gear, creating a large number of holy demonic swords that sprung from the ground around Siegfried. His hope was to skewer the man. Sadly, that wasn't what happened. Siegfried leapt into the air. Once airborne, he swung Gram at the ground, sending a large crescent wave that obliterated the holy demonic swords with ease. Kiba didn't give up and created more swords, this time in the air, which she launched at Siegfried as a form of makeshift projectile. His hopes to somehow impale his opponent from afar were also met with failure. Siegfried used all 3 of his blades to bat his swords from the air as though they were nothing. Still not enough, Siegfried taunted. I need something stronger. No, not stronger. I just need a sword that can counter Gram's power. Sword birth gave him the ability to create an infinite number of demon swords that could exhibit numerous properties. He even had one that devoured holy energy and other sources of light. If he could create a sword capable of devouring demonic energy, then it's worth a shot. Getting rid of the holy sword he'd been using, Kiba reached out his hand and imagined a weapon that could devour demonic energy. He frowned. Since he was trying to create something that could devour demonic energy, that meant he couldn't use sword birth, which created demon swords. In that case, blade blacksmith. Kiba didn't just have one sacred gear. After absorbing the spirits of his lost comrades, Kiba had gained the ability to create holy demonic swords. However, sword birth only allowed the creation of demon swords, so how was he able to create swords with a holy attribute? Obviously because he had both sword birth and blade blacksmith. Forming in midair was a blade of the purest silver. Untainted by anything, this pure blade had a straight edge and the general shape of a European broadsword. It wasn't very large. However, that was because he was condensing its power across a smaller mass in order to make it stronger. Now using the demon sword, Holy Eraser, and the holy sword, Demon Eraser, Kiba rushed toward Siegfried once more. You don't honestly think those two swords will be able to defeat my swords, do you? Asked Siegfried as he swung his light sword down. Kiba blocked the attack with Holy Eraser. The holy sword's bright glow, a symbol of the holy energy infusing it, flickered and dimmed before going out. Siegfried raised an eyebrow at that as he swung Gram at Kiba. Like when he blocked the light sword, Kiba brought up Demon Eraser to block and absorb the energy of this weapon. It didn't work. Demon Eraser shattered. Out of desperation, Kiba created a wall out of his holy demonic sword, Sword of the Betrayer, to protect himself. Gram S into the shield and shattered it with ease. It was like the weapon was see-through paper instead of countless holy demonic swords. Fortunately, Kiba had been able to leap back and avoid taking the brunt of the damage, but just the excess power from Siegfried's swing created a powerful repulsive force that shoved him back. Kiba stumbled across the ground before managing to right himself. A sense of danger caused the hairs on his end to prickle. He looked up. Siegfried was already in front of him. Eyes widening, Kiba defended against Gram by creating another holy sword, but of course the powerful demon sword shattered it like it was nothing. Even so, that single second it took to destroy his blade allowed Kiba to move. Using his superior speed as a knight, he avoided getting hit, not that it mattered. Siegfried spun around and attacked using nothing. Desperate to avoid taking any damage, Kiba created the Destruction Sword, a two-handed demonic sword that was over 2 meters long. He didn't intend to swing it. He used it as a shield. Nothing S into the weapon, which exploded with an incredible amount of power. Black energy howled. Siegfried stumbled back as his dragon arm was thrown wide. Kiba leapt several feet back to put some distance between them. I am very surprised you managed to last this long, Siegfried claimed. Even if I'm not going all out, you still managed to survive longer than a lot of other people. For that, I'll grant you a special privilege and allow you to witness one of my strongest attacks. Sheathing nothing and the light sword, Siegfried grunted and, with a strange tearing sound, 3 more dragon arms emerged from his back. Not only did he grip Gram with both hands, but all 4 dragon arms reached around and grabbed the sword as well. A shiver ran down Kiba's spine as dark energy poured off the blade like smoke. He knew that if he let Siegfried hit him with whatever attack he had planned, it would be the end of him. I can't let myself get hit by that. Kiba was already certain he wouldn't be able to reach Siegfried in time, so he instead sent out hundreds of swords, both holy and demonic, to attack the man. They were fired off like bullets from an automatic rifle. However, despite being peppered with hundreds of swords, nothing happened. Perhaps it was the overwhelming energy leaking from Gram, but all the swords Kiba fired shattered before they could hit Siegfried. This is not good. Here it is. Have a taste of the kind of power someone who wields a true demon sword has. Siegfried raised Gram in the air, all 6 of his hands gripping it tight, and then he brought it down. A massive wave of black energy burst from the sword. It was like a black flame spreading across the ground, but instead of burning everything in its path, it destroyed it. The ground was apart. Kiba, in a last, desperate attempt to keep himself from being poured all his energy into erecting several dozen walls between him and the massive tidal wave of energy. However, the tidal wave crashed through one wall after another. Kiba released all the demonic energy he had in one last gambit, and then the tidal wave of energy washed over him. Devil Ninja. Their battlefield was the palace itself. Being a magic user, Rosweiss had immediately taken to the sky. Magic circles appeared all around her, glowing blue circles that rotated where they floated. From within those circles came blasts of lightning, gouts of fire, torrents of water, and a deluge of powerful sea winds. All of it was aimed at Heracles, who stood on the ground several meters below her. Ha 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 ha. Do you really think magic like that will work on me? A massive explosion went up as her attacks into Heracles with enough power that the detonation could be felt for kilometers. The lightning sent arcs of energy across the ground. Massive plumes of fire rose into the air like a phoenix rising from the ashes. That fire was quickly doused by the water, which then solidified into ice, freezing everything within so the sea winds could through her opponent. Rosweiss narrowed her eyes as she stared into the destruction her attack had caused, waiting, watching to see if her enemy had survived. He had. Heracles stood exactly where he had been, his arms crossed and a confident smirk on his face. The Gakuran and Greek armor he wore didn't have a single scratch on them, and Heracles himself also seemed completely unharmed. Rosweiss could only look at him with wide eyes as her bombardment failed. Did you really think your pathetic magic would be enough to overcome my defenses? Ha! I carry the spirit of the Greek hero, Heracles. A pathetic magic attack like that will never hurt me. Rosweiss narrowed her eyes further as she tried to figure out what she could do. It seemed bombarding him with multiple types of magic didn't work. He must have had a very high magical resistance, which meant it would take an overwhelming amount of power to break through. That, or maybe I can break through if I condense my magic into a beam. As a skilled practitioner of Norse magic, Rosweiss specialized in long-range and bombarding attacks. She was capable of using just about every element: ice, fire, water, lightning, wind, thunder, light, summoning, and even explosive-based magic. If she used her explosive magic to create a condensed beam, perhaps she could punch through Heracles' defenses. It was worth a shot. I hope you don't think I'm going to just let you keep attacking me, Heracles said as Rosweiss came up with her plan. It's time to show you how powerless you really are. As he finished speaking, Heracles' body started glowing with a bright aura that surrounded him. The aura then transformed into objects that resembled missiles. Just as the thought crossed her mind, the missile-like objects blasted forward at speeds she could scarcely track. Rosweiss moved into a series of aerial maneuvers, but the missiles followed her, staying on her tail as even more missiles joined in. Realizing that she couldn't keep dodging, Rosweiss created over 100 magic circles and launched lightning at the attacks. Her magic struck the missiles and caused them to detonate. While the detonations pushed her around some, Rosweiss decided to use the bright light from the explosions as a distraction to launch her own attack. She soared above the many flaring explosions and locked onto Heracles. She held out her hands. A magic circle appeared in front of her, smaller than the others, but containing even more power. Concentrating hard, she incorporated hundreds of high-level magic symbols into her attack, causing the entire thing to become so dense it looked like a single object as opposed to a bunch of small symbols. Once her attack was ready, she launched it at Heracles. What erupted from her magic circle was a condensed beam of red energy. It moved far faster than anything else she'd launched thanks to an acceleration spell she'd added. Her inspiration had come from an anime Rias had watched in which a character named Masaka fired off a coin using electricity so fast it was like a railgun. The attack struck Heracles' on, and the man, arrogant to the end, didn't even bother moving out of the way. The attack his shoulder. Herc. Heracles went down onto a knee as the magic went straight through him and struck the ground, exploding with enough force to push the man forward. His hair blew every which way as he placed one hand against his shoulder and the other on the ground. He dug his fingers into the cement to keep himself from being sent flying. When the attack was over, he stood up. There was a massive hole going through his left shoulder, so large even Rosweiss, several dozen meters in the air, could see through it, bleaked from the wound, drenching his clothes. He glared up at her. His eyes were filled with intent. You see sucking little s. I'm going to K you. Before Rosweiss could think of attacking again, nearly 100 missile-like projectiles flew through the air, all sailing toward her. She already knew she couldn't dodge. They were surrounding her on all sides. In desperation, she created a shield made of nearly 200 magic circles. Would it be enough to protect her? A massive light flashed through the night sky as the missiles s into her shields with a relentless fury. Devil Ninja. Issei stood before Cao Cao and Jean. The roar of combat echoed all around them. Over a dozen meters away, black flames danced and surrounded Yasaka, writhing like tendrils. The QB leader shook as her body released a powerful aura. It looked like she was in pain, but then she spat out several large balls of fire. They didn't look as powerful as Tannen's flames, but Issei could still feel the heat from where he stood. Saji wasn't the only person battling. Irina had gone to fight Zenevia, Kiba was battling Siegfried, and Rosweiss was fighting Heracles, which meant Issei had to deal with these two. His job wasn't to win, however. He was aware of his own limitations. His job was merely to buy Sensei time to activate his new technique, whatever that was. Asia was currently doing her best to heal the others, but it was proving difficult because their battles were taking place further away. She and Kanu stood behind Naruto. So far the only person she'd been able to heal was Rosweiss, who was flying high above them as she fought. The woman had been caught in a massive explosion and injured, but Asia healed her from a distance and the battle had resumed. Isn't it great? Cao Cao asked, causing Issei to look away from the battles. It's like a balance breaker free for all. Well, without having a power like this, there is no way us humans can compete with you supernatural existences. Cao Cao twirled the spear in his hand with a casual grace, causing Issei to distance himself. At that moment, his opponent had many openings, but Issei knew better. Even if those openings weren't traps, Cao Cao had Jin standing by his side. That said, he should be able to defeat her no problem. I should beat her first. Issei had already been promoted to knight. He would make use of his speed to quickly defeat Jin. B. Reveal your thoughts to me. Bilingual. A strange space covered the area around the battlefield, visible only to him. With bilingual activated, Issei charged straight for Jin, extending his left hand as Ascalon shot from the jewel above his knuckles. Ooh. Going after me first. You perv. I'll show you who's a perv. With that shout, Issei quickly closed the distance. I'm going to move left and then attack from his blind spot. Jin's B spoke to him, telling him what she would do next, and Issei reacted accordingly. He turned around as Jin moved around his left to attack his blind spot. Her sword clashed against Ascalon. Despite having her attack defended against, she didn't seem shocked, and in fact, there was a large smile on her face. Issei would have wondered about that smile, but then he felt a chill on his back. He disengaged from Jin. Spinning around, he moved aside as a spear L the place where he'd been standing. It was the Longinus. He knocked it away with Ascalon, and then tried to attack Cao Cao, but he was too slow. His opponent had already retreated. Did you know my companions and I came up with a theory on how to defeat you? As Jin circled behind him, which Issei knew because her bee told him, Cao Cao began talking. Our idea was to attack you with a time-accelerating sacred gear. Doing so will shorten the time you can remain in balance breaker and release your armor prematurely. We even have one such sacred gear user. The problem is that it has no offensive capabilities. Issei didn't let Cao Cao know that he knew what Jin was doing. He kept his eyes focused on the man in front of him. There's a problem with that, though, Issei said, deciding to make casual conversation. If you accelerated my time, I could just release my balance break voluntarily and switch to using the normal ability of my sacred gear. With the accelerated time, I could infinitely double my power in minutes. Yes, Cao Cao smiled. That is why we ultimately decided against it. I'm going to attack now. In that instant, Jin's B told Issei exactly what she was going to do. Issei used the speed he'd attained from his promotion to avoid her attack. She fell on the spot he'd been standing, her sword extended as it missed, and then she was sent flying when Issei kicked her. He'd actually wanted to place a magic circle on her clothes, but his arms couldn't reach that far, so a kick it was. Cao Cao attacked Issei before he could recover, sending a slew of powerful thrusts with his spear, but Issei used both his speed and his precognitive abilities to avoid the attacks. Cao Cao was good. No, he was better than good. His attacks were precise, powerful, and fast. That said, Issei had been training with Naruto, who had helped him learn how to predict his opponents by looking at their torso instead of their hands. It just barely allowed him to keep up with the much faster hero faction leader. Since attacking from behind didn't work, I'll attack from above. The voice of Jin's B echoed in his ears. Issei leapt backward as Jin fell from the sky. Her sword slid into the ground with ease. Now I'll surprise him with my sacred gear. As her B spoke, a sword grew out from underneath Jin's foot. Issei recognized the holy sword for what it was and knew not to let it hit him. He leapt out of the way, but sadly, this brought him toward Cao Cao. Whoa! Cao Cao thrust out his spear. Issei ducked underneath the attack out of desperation, which allowed him to narrowly avoid death. Then he attacked with Ascalon. However, Cao Cao stepped back as he dexterously spun the Longinus in his hands, knocking the sword away from him. Asia. Promote me to bishop. Yes. As the feeling of speed faded from his mind, A surge of magic flooded his nerves. Issei took to the sky, avoiding Jin's attack. Now in the air, he concentrated on what he wanted, visualizing it in his mind. I don't know if this will work, but... As his wings flapped, two massive barrels suddenly appeared over his shoulder, gleaming red in the light. Issei channeled his magic into them, causing a bright glow to appear within each barrel. Take this, you bastard. With a thunderous roar, the twin cannons blasted condensed bullets of demonic power. Cao Cao and Jin were obviously smart enough not to take them head on. They both moved in opposite directions as the bullets exploded with an intense spray of demonic power. Even Issei felt himself being pushed back as the two sphere-shaped detonations expanded. Dropping back to the ground, Issei quickly stood in front of Sensei, Asia, and Kanu, erecting a shield to keep them from being caught in the blast. A quick glance back revealed that Sensei hadn't moved from his spot. His eyes were still closed as though he was meditating. Issei quickly focused back on attacking. He tracked Cao Cao and Jin with his cannons and began firing off multiple rounds. The two hero faction members quickly dodged his bullets, but then Issei switched targets. Instead of attacking them, he attacked their surroundings. Explosion after explosion into the ground close to them. Neither Cao Cao nor Jin were the type to get knocked off balance, but he was able to corral them closer together. Boost 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 boost. While he forced the two to move where he wanted them, Issei continued boosting himself, doubling his power multiple times within several seconds. Once he had what he felt was enough power, Issei retracted his cannons, held out his hands, and created a single massive cannon from those. Take this, suckers. I'm gonna blow my load all over your faces. What? Cao Cao actually paused upon hearing his words, but Issei didn't care. He fired off a beam of demonic energy so powerful the very air sizzled and the ground melted as it sped toward them. Not only was it powerful, but the size of the beam was easily several meters in diameter. There was no way they could dodge it. Asia, please promote me to queen. Okay. Issei took a calming breath as the promotion further increased his abilities. He still hadn't mastered the queen promotion, but he would need it for this. Boost 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 boost. As he boosted himself, a pair of jets appeared on his back, and Issei surged forward in the wake of his massive beam attack. Just as he had expected, the beam was split in half. The two divergent halves into the surrounding palace, detonating with a concussive force, but Issei ignored the blazing hot winds that into him and charged at Cao Cao, who stood protectively in front of Jin. Ha 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 ha. So this is the power of the Sekiro Ote. Most impressive. Boost 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 boost. Throwing a powerful straight punch at Cao Cao with his boosted fist, Issei waited until the man moved his spear to parry his punch, and then he stopped his fist just before the spear. Cao Cao's spear flew through the space between them. His parry had missed. Now, surging forward, Issei thrust out his other hand and transferred his power into Ascalon. He emitted a powerful pulse that caused an aura shaped like a blade to shoot forward. A tearing noise echoed around the battlefield. Jin screamed in shock as Cao Cao's arm flew through the air. Issei grinned as he saw the damage his attack had done, but then he blinked when an incredible pain shot through his stomach. He looked down. The longinus had his stomach. It seems we both landed a hit. Cao Cao chuckled. Though my attack did a lot more damage. As Cao Cao removed his spear from Issei's stomach and impaled it into the ground, Issei fell onto his hands and knees as smoke began pouring from the wound. Ai-san. Asia screamed behind him. You're mine now. Jin shouted as her bee warned Issei of the danger. Yet Issei couldn't move. The pain was, he couldn't think. It was taking everything he had not to scream. However, just before Jin could attack, several spears of light rained from the sky, forcing her to dodge to avoid them. At that moment, Irina fell from the ground and attacked the blonde beauty with a light sword. Twilight healing. At that same moment, Issei felt the pain in his stomach lessen. He looked at his arms as a green aura engulfed him. Asia had used her twilight healing on him. However, while the pain wasn't as unbearable, the wound wasn't getting any smaller. With something of a grimace, He took out the phoenix tears he'd been given and used them on his wound. It seems we had the same idea, Cao Cao said. Issei looked up and felt his eyes bulge as Cao Cao poured what was obviously phoenix tears on his wound and then attached his lopped-off arm to the spot where it had been severed. Steam hissed around the arm as it became reattached. How did you get those? Cao Cao laughed. The black market, of course. People are willing to sell anything if it can make them some money, though it wasn't easy to acquire these. The Phoenix House has been doing everything they can to restrict access to their tears. Well, it looks like we're both healed. Shall we get back to it? A few meters from them, Irina and Jean were battling against each other. It looked like Jean had the upper hand. Irina was already sporting several and bruises, but the angel doggedly continued to battle. Asia was also healing her. With Jean out of the way, I can focus more on fighting against Cao Cao. Drake, can you heal the hole in my armor? Of course, partner. However, it's gonna take a while. That longiness is no joke. I understand. He wondered how much time had passed since this battle began. It felt like a lot of time had gone by, but he knew that was adrenaline talking. In truth, it was more than likely that barely a minute or two had passed since this battle began. He grimaced. At that moment, a massive explosion echoed around them, causing the ground to shake. About 2 or 3 dozen meters to his right came a sea of black flames engulfing the garden. That was where Kiba had taken Siegfried to battle. As if proving that matters were even worse than he'd expected, a massive explosion overhead caused him to look up. A figure was falling from the sky. Issei recognized them. Rosweiss. She plummeted to the ground somewhat close to where Asia, Canoe, and Sensei were, striking the hard ground head first. Her body was covered in B. As she lay unmoving on the ground, a crimson pool spread out underneath her. Rosweiss. Asia cried as she scrambled over to the woman and began trying to heal her wounds. Tears leaked from Asia's eyes. Damn it. Boost 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 boost. Issei rushed at Cao Cao as he boosted himself, doubling his power more and more. He attacked Cao Cao with reckless abandon, but the man proved incredibly apt at fighting back. Issei gritted his teeth as his attacks all missed. The problem wasn't that his enemy was stronger than him. Cao Cao seemed well aware that Issei had more raw power, but it was exactly for that reason that he was losing. Cao Cao seemed adept at fighting people with more power than him. He was using a method to avoid or deflect attacks with minimal energy on his part. Not only that, but after every attack Issei launched, Cao Cao would off pieces of his armor, which forced Drake to divert more energy to repairing the damage done. It wasn't long before C started appearing on his body, and those C began emitting smoke. Even with his power boosted, his strength began flagging. Sorry, Sekiruote, but this is the end for you, Cao Cao said calmly. You are strong. You're a lot stronger than I thought you'd be. However, even with the level of power you possess, it is not enough to win against people who contain the spirit of ancient heroes. Georg, how is the magic circle coming along? It's coming, but it will still take a while to complete, George said. Will this really cool Great Red? I certainly hope so, Cao Cao said. I have no confidence in my ability to defeat that one in an even fight. At the mention of that one, Issei glanced briefly in the direction of Sensei, still seated on the ground. He had managed to keep Cao Cao's attention on him, but perhaps that was because the Longinus wielder was wary. That made sense given Sensei's unpredictable nature. Perhaps Cao Cao thought his actions were a feint to make him attack. However, as he looked back at Naruto, he found several other people there as well. Kiba had been laid out on the ground, his body smoking from multiple wounds that Asia was now trying to heal. He was unconscious next to Rosweiss. Irina was still fighting against Jean, and it looked like Xenavia had joined the battle, but the two girls seemed exhausted from having fought each other and weren't doing too well. At that exact moment, Heracles and Siegfried strolled over to Cao Cao. While their B were littered with wounds, neither of them looked terrible, and they appeared to have more than enough energy left to fight. Kiba and Rosweiss both lost. Not only had his friends lost, but he was definitely not winning right now. Sensei had asked him to buy time, but not even half the allotted time had passed, and he was clearly losing. His body was littered in sea that hissed and smoked. Asia couldn't heal him because she was busy trying to save Kiba and Rosweiss, both of whom clearly had life-threatening injuries. What's more, a loud roar made Issei look at the battle between Saji and Yasaka. Saji, or rather, Vitra, had become entangled in the Kyuubi's 9 tails and was roaring in pain. It looked like even he had lost. Mother, please wake up. Don't do this. Kanu was screaming as she tried to plead with her mother to stop, but the Kyuubi leader wasn't even looking at her as she slowly crushed the life out of Saji. What should I do? A sense of helplessness overcame Issei as he realized he might not be able to give Sensei the time he requested. He felt pitiful, pathetic. He'd been training so hard to protect his loved ones, but all that training had amounted to nothing. Tears of shame poured from his eyes as he realized how hopeless his situation was. He couldn't do what Sensei asked of him, Kanu's mother was beyond his ability to save, and his friends were all injured. He didn't want to give up, but he couldn't see a way to win. What should I do? Are you crying? A voice inside of him spoke up. That voice. It was Elsha-san. That is correct. Now, why are you crying? It's because I'm so weak. Elsha-san was a former Sekiroute. It seemed all the previous Sekiroute were sealed away inside of the boosted gear. Issei had met them before, though almost none of them talked to him at all. They just kind of sat there. Only Elsha-san talked to him. Well, you're a bit weak, but did you forget what the fallen angel governor told you? You embody limitless possibilities. Issei remembered the conversation he'd had with Azazel before. He'd said that all the past Sekiroute had been devoured by their own powers until they were K. Out of all of them, Issei was the only one who had retained his sanity, and the reason was because his powers didn't come a desire to fight or greed. They came from B. That's right. Even though I want to protect the people I love, my powers comes from my desire to see B, to touch them. It's a unique way to grow stronger that only I can use. That is it exactly. This is much more like you. This is more like the man Belzad and I saw, who seemed to have infinite possibilities. Now I believe it is time to release your potential. A bright glow emitted from his shirt pocket. Issei took out the object inside. It was the jewel that Azazel had given him. It was giving off a red light. What the heck? Raise that jewel and summon them. Summon them. Yes. Go summon the person you long for. Summon the bee you long for. Oppai. Oppai. Lots of oppai. Many oppai. Numerous lights floated out from the jewel, taking on a humanoid shape. 1, 2, 3. They multiplied quickly. This jewel has been transferred from one human to another all around Kyoto. These figures you see have been formed from the residual memories of those people. Issei felt a bit guilty hearing that. His potential had basically been floating around Kyoto and turning innocent people into molesters. He felt the need to apologize to all those people. Oppai. As the lingering memories repeated the word, oppai, over and over again, Issei wondered if maybe he was dreaming and this was some kind of exhibition. Really, it was just too surreal even for him. What are these? Asked Cao Cao. He and the others were standing stock still. It seemed they were in shock. The lingering memories arranged themselves into a circle before Issei and melted into the ground. A powerful light surged from within the circle. Symbols carved themselves in the center, forming a magic circle several times larger than anything Issei had created before. Everything is ready. Now summon that person. Summon her now. Issei didn't have to ask who Elsha-san was asking him to summon. He knew. Even without her name being stated, he knew because there was only one person in the world aside from Asia who was on his mind, and between the two, only she had the bee that Issei went mad over. Summon bee. In a massive explosion of light, the word, oppai, appeared within the magical script. There was another bright flash of light, and then, a figure appeared inside the circle. Ara. Akeno looked extremely confused as she stared at her new surroundings. She was only wearing a bra and panties. The G-string didn't leave much to the imagination, and her bee spilled out of her bra as though it was several sizes too small to contain her large helping of cleavage. What is going on here? Have I been summoned to Kyoto? This girl is the switch to opening your possibilities, Issei. In order to unleash your potential, you must poke Akeno's N. As if her words were some kind of prophecy, Akino's nipples flashed as though filled with holy light, which made no sense to him. Wasn't she half devil and half fallen angel? Well, actually, fallen angels could use holy power, so maybe that was why. In any event, there was a problem with Elsha-san's words. No matter how much Issei might want to touch Akino's bee, to poke her in, he couldn't. They weren't dating anymore. While he hadn't given up on her, Issei had agreed to back off and not push her into anything she didn't want to do. It felt like if he did this, then he would betray his words. Akino looked around, observing the situation, eyes lingering on the hero faction, who remained where they were, standing still with uncertainty. Well, this was an unexpected situation. After that, she turned her attention to him. The smile that appeared on her face was quite wry. It seems you have found yourself in some trouble. I'm sorry, Issei apologized. For what? Asked Akino. Well, I summoned you, so. Yes, that makes sense. I see. You summoned me because you needed my help. Akino asked. Issei nodded and looked down. What should he say? What should he do? Ice-kun, why am I bee glowing? Is this some kind of perverted role play you're trying out in order to make me come back to you? Issei shook his head. No, of course not. I mean, I know how you feel. I would never do that to you. I love you too much to force myself on you. I think I understand the situation, Akino finally said. You want to poke my don't you? He looked away. He did. It was more than just circumstantial. Even though Akino had dumped him, his feelings for her hadn't changed in the slightest. He had even decided not to create a harem until after he'd convinced Akino to come back. However, it was precisely because he loved her so much that he refused to say anything. He didn't want to make her hate him. Akino sighed. You know this won't change anything, right? Even if I let you touch them, I'm not coming back. I can't. Issei bit his lip. Akino surely knew that he hadn't given up, but he promised to give her space, so he didn't say anything. With another sigh, Akino's smile turned more genuine as she undid the clasp on her bra and revealed her bee. Issei was almost blown back by an. Not only was he staring at the familiar bee of the woman who had taken his and Asia's first time, but they were emitting a faint glow. You can touch them. Just this once. Are you sure it's okay? Asked Issei. Akino shrugged. You need to, right? Go ahead. As though her job was done, Akino was enveloped in a bright light and rose into the sky, where she soon vanished. Where'd she go? Back to wherever you summoned her from. So, Akino had been summoned all the way to Kyoto just so he could touch her bee. That seemed kinda anticlimactic. No, not just that. It was rude. Issei sighed. When he got home, he would prostrate himself before her and apologize. What the heck just happened? Issei looked back at Cao Cao and his faction. All of them were gawking at him like they couldn't figure out what was happening. It was like the events of a few seconds ago were simply too much for them to comprehend. Of course, they had been expecting to summon Great Red, but Akino had arrived instead. As all these thoughts crossed his mind, Issei felt an intense beating from deep within his sea. Then a loud voice spoke up. It's coming. As Elsha-san's voice rose in volume, deep crimson light overflowed from the jewels on his Welsh dragon armor. His body was encased in warmth. Power flowed from his body like nothing he'd ever felt before. What was this power? This is quite nostalgic. What you're feeling now is my original aura. It feels like the time when I still had my material body, when all I cared about was fighting the White One. Drake seemed quite happy. Issei didn't really understand everything his partner was saying, but if it made him happy, then it couldn't be a bad thing. As this thought took hold in his mind, his entire body burst with the red aura and covered his surroundings in light. Devil Ninja. Deep within the seal, Naruto and Kurama continued calmly going through their hand seals. Strings of chakra-like wisps of smoke tethered them together, binding them and creating a vortex that would be shaped and controlled by the hand seals. They were more than halfway finished. I sense something happening outside. It looks like Eyes is about to get serious. Do we even need to do this? I don't think Eyes will win. This new power of his is certainly something, but he doesn't have any control. The fact that you and I can feel it from inside the seal is proof. Besides, don't you want to get outside and stretch your legs? Good point. Exactly. Let's keep going. Though he said that, Naruto's hands felt like they were cramping. Unlike most jutsu where he could blaze through seals, he and Kurama needed to take this process slowly. If they moved too fast, they could make a mistake, and then at least half of Japan would disappear as a result. By the way, what is it? If we's using this jutsu, my spirit is going to haunt yours. Shut up and keep making hand seals, stupid furball. Devil Ninja. IAM. The shout that came from Issei upon regaining consciousness made everyone present stop whatever they were doing and stare at him. However, Issei didn't seem to be paying the slightest bit of attention. Let's do this. Boosted gear. Red light flashed around Issei's body, engulfing him in a powerful aura that leaked out and caused cracks to spread across the ground. It flowed out from the depths of his heart, from within his body. He'd never felt anything like this before. Ah, yes, this is it, partner. This is my original power, which God had sealed. It's been so long that I forgot what it felt like. That's so. It feels pretty good. Let's use it to beat these guys. Right, let's show these fools the true power of the Red Dragon Emperor. Desire. Diabolos. Determination. Dragon. Disaster. Desecration. Discharge. Voices entered his mind one after another, and through them, the method of using and understanding this new power flowed into Issei's mind. He wondered if this had something to do with the adjusted evil pieces inside of him, but he dismissed the thought. It didn't matter. Thanks to the interruption, he was no longer promoted, but that was fine. He could just promote himself again. He didn't even need Asia's confirmation this time. Mode change. Welsh Blaster Bishop. Once more, Issei promoted himself to Bishop. He gathered the red aura of his power around his shoulders. A backpack formed along his back, and then two massive cannons took shape on his shoulders. They were even bigger than the last ones he'd used. The true power of Drake certainly was amazing. That looks dangerous, Cao Cao muttered as Issei began concentrating all of his magical power, raised through his promotion to Bishop, to the cannons in his shoulder. Issei thought about how this battle had played out. How his comrades had been defeated. How pathetic he felt that he couldn't protect them. He was going to put all those feelings into his cannons and shoot Cao Cao in the face. Boost, 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 boost. Disappear. Dragon Blaster. The shoulder cannons fired a gigantic blast of concentrated magical energy. The power flowing out was so strong that Issei nearly lost his own balance. The recoil was just that powerful. To keep himself from flying off, he created a tail from his back and speared it into the ground. This looks interesting. I'll take this attack from the legendary dragon head on. Heracles stepped forward, a smug grin plastered on his face. No, don't take it. Evade. The man, despite being 2 meters tall and probably weighing a couple hundred pounds, was sent flying away as Cao Cao smacked him with his spear. Once Heracles was out of the way, the others also fled the area. A massive explosion tore the air apart. It shook the entire space like a seismic quake, and then the city located behind Niju Castle disappeared in a flash of bright light. When the light s down, it showed that nothing was left. The scenery of the city, created by this artificial dimension, was completely gone. He destroyed an entire city. Hey, what the hell kind of power is that? I've never seen anything like this, Siegfried muttered in surprise. He was no longer smiling. Another attack of that caliber, and this entire dimension will shatter. Cao Cao. Issei ignored the surprise of his opponents and focused on the one he wanted revenge against. He released the cannons on his back, which dissipated into particles of light. Right now what he needed was not unrivaled magical power. It was speed. Mode change. Welsh Sonic Boost Knight. The dragon wings jutting from his back spread wide as he flew toward Cao Cao, the boosters on his back spewing out a torrential flame of magical power. The air screeched as he tore through it. Not enough. Gritting his teeth, He shed the heavy armor covering his body and poured out even more power. He gave up on defense and focused purely on offense. Aisai's body complained as immense G-forces enter it, but he ignored all the warning signs and hurtled through the air. Boost, 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 boost. Despite how fast he was going, it didn't seem to be fast enough. Cao Cao had seen him. The man entered a stance with his spear held in front of him. Aisai snarled. He was going to show this asshat what happened when someone messed with his friends. Crashing into Cao Cao with the godlike speed granted to him, he sent the man flying back with nary a thought. Cao Cao skidded along the ground. Aisai frowned. He'd expected the man to get pulverized. Ha 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 ha. It is just like you to charge straight at me from the front, but are you sure that's such a good idea? Since you've decided to give it your all, I've increased my own power. Can your thin armor stand up to my spear? Let's find out. Aisai knew that Cao Cao was right. His armor right now was thin and elegant, but that meant it wouldn't stand up to the longiness. In that case, he just needed to change his armor. Mode change. Welsh Dragonic Rook. What he needed right now wasn't speed, but overwhelming offensive and defensive capabilities. He gathered the red aura around himself, reforging the armor he'd shed. However, he didn't stop there. He made the armor thicker, denser, and then he created a heavy shield. I see. Cao Cao yelled. It looks like you've decided to change your armor again. If I want to defeat you, I'll need to destroy this impressive defense of yours. Cao Cao raced forward and began attacking him with his spear, but Aisai couldn't even feel them. He would have said it was like a fly buzzing around. However, even that didn't seem to really describe the feeling of Cao Cao's spear grazing his armor. Boost, 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 boost. Aisai caught the spear in his left hand, and then he raised his right hand and prepared himself. Don't look down on me, you bastard. He his fist into Cao Cao, who finally flew backward faster than a bullet. He into what little remained of the palace, which honestly looked less like a palace and more like a desert. There really was nothing left. A massive cloud of dirt had been kicked up by what happened, obscuring his vision, forcing Aisai to wait. The other members of the hero faction didn't move. They didn't seem sure about whether or not they could win against him. Aisai was determined to wait and see what else he could do, but just then, all of the energy went right out of him. His armor disappeared. Then he fell to his knees, panting as a strong fatigue washed over him. He winced. My stamina. Partner, thanks to how you unleashed my original power, the countdown to enter Balance Breaker has decreased. Furthermore, the total time you can spend in Balance Breaker has increased. However, entering Balance Breaker now will also consume more stamina because you're using more power. This is especially true when you change modes like you just did. D-. Do you think it will get easier? I suspect that once you get used to your power, the amount of stamina you consume will be lessened. Oh, good. I don't wanna feel this way every time I do this. Me neither. As Aisai slowly climbed to his feet, he looked at the area where Cao Cao had struck. The dust had settled now. Cao Cao was also getting to his feet several dozen meters away. Bee leaked from his nose and mouth, but he planted his spear into the ground and wiped the bee away. So this is the Sekiru Utai's true power. That was quite terrifying. In terms of direct offensive power, you might even be able to rival Varley without his juggernaut drive. I am impressed. Issei didn't know how he should feel about this man's words. It sounded like he was being praised, but according to Cao Cao, Varley was still more powerful than he was if he used that juggernaut drive thingy. Still, Cao Cao continued, that attack of yours consumed more stamina than it should have. You are far from mastering it. Even if you do master it, I imagine it will still consume a lot of stamina. I estimate that you won't be able to remain in that form for more than 10 minutes at most. Issei clicked his tongue. Damn. You really are a troublesome opponent, you know that. You calmly analyze my abilities like it's nothing. I thought you'd underestimate me. No, I definitely underestimated you slightly in this instance. You are a truly formidable adversary. Cao Cao began tapping his spear against his shoulder. This was quite exhilarating. I haven't felt this way since the last time I dueled Varley. Fighting legendary dragons really is the greatest thrill a human like me can have. Issei almost groaned. This idiot was another battle maniac. He really hated people like this. All he wanted was to make up with Akeno, and then begin building his harem so he could live the rest of his days in peaceful bliss. Before his thoughts could progress any further, the entire world suddenly froze. Not really. However, Issei felt as if he'd been transported under the polar ice caps. A chill spread through his body, and the gravity around him felt as if it had undergone a 1000 increase. He wasn't the only one feeling it either. Cao Cao and the other hero faction members had all frozen solid. Ha! The sound of someone taking a deep breath echoed behind Issei. It really has been a long time since I've been able to stretch my legs. Naruto was right. This is nice. However, this form feels a bit awkward. I'm not used to looking so human. Issei wanted to turn around, but something was preventing him from moving. His knees were shaking and his body had seized up. An indescribable sensation similar to fear but altogether different had made it impossible to move. What kind of power is this? D-Drake. I've never, in my entire life, felt something like this. Partner, whatever you do, never fight whoever this power belongs to. Even if you mastered all of my abilities, you'll never defeat this person. Issei couldn't believe what he was hearing, but then, with this overwhelming presence bearing down on him, he really had no room to say anything. It felt like even the slightest movement would cause his body to tear itself apart. Tap tap, tap tap, tap tap. Footsteps echoed along the now mostly silent battleground. They were coming closer, closer. Issei wanted to squeeze his eyes shut, but even that small movement was unavailable to him. The footsteps stopped next to him, and then a hand patted his shoulder. You did a good job giving Naruto and I enough time to activate our jutsu, the voice said. Leave the rest of this to me. The figure began walking again, and Issei, finally able to gather some strength, looked up. What he saw was a man with blazing red hair, red fur covering his arms and legs, 2 red fox ears sitting on his head, and 10 tails swaying elegantly behind his back. Devil Ninja. The air gently caressed Kurama's face and ruffled his fur. It felt nice. So nice. He could not remember how long it had been since he'd felt this sensation. Of course, he and Naruto had gone to great lengths to make his seal more comfortable, but no seal could simulate real life like this. Now that he was outside, he felt this difference distinctly. You. Cao Cao gasped for breath. Sweat poured down his forehead in rivulets. Who? No, what are you? Even as Kurama pondered why this man looked so nervous, he decided to humor him. It had been so long since he'd spoken to anyone aside from Naruto, after all, and this would extend his stay outside for a little while. My name is Kurama, he said, and then paused. He should add a bit more information, shouldn't he? I am the Oni sealed within Naruto Uzumaki. I suppose you could say that I was the original reason Office took such a great interest in him. Back when Naruto had been killed by the Chaos Brigade, the reason was because they had used a small fraction of Kurama's power to create a chakra shroud so he could battle Kokobile. Office had felt that power and wanted it. Thinking back on it, what they had done was really stupid. Kurama was honestly surprised Japan hadn't sunk into the sea. He guessed it was because, at the time, Naruto hadn't lost his chakra to that strange draining phenomena. In terms of power, while his friend was far weaker than he was far stronger than most other beings they had met so far, save for Office herself. You are, I see, it is, no wonder, Office took such an interest, in you. Cao Cao s his spear into the ground and used it to pull himself up. He leaned against it like a man who was on his last leg. Once more, Kurama couldn't help but wonder why this man had trouble standing. Surely his fight with Ise hadn't been enough to so thoroughly exhaust him. RRAAAAAGGGHHH. A scream interrupted them. Kurama turned his head as Heracles rushed toward him. The man's eyes were wide and bulging, drool leaked from his mouth, and he had raised his hand as if to press Kurama's face in. Fear had overwhelmed his ability to comprehend what was happening. It hadn't given him any strength, but it had overwritten his thought process. Perhaps this was what happened when a human couldn't accept what was in front of them. Heracles, don't. Cao Cao tried to shout. Kurama clicked his tongue. Annoyance. Disappear. Striking Heracles with a trickle of his power, Kurama watched with an impassive gaze as the man exploded into ash. Everyone else stared at the spot in shock. Cao Cao's eyes had gone wide. Jean, Siegfried, and Georg were gawking as they stared at the spot Heracles had been standing on. Kurama looked at Georg. If you do not stop that ritual this instant, I will destroy you the same way I destroyed him. It was not a request, or even a command. It was just a statement. Georg, stop the ritual. Cao Cao, are you sure? Yes. Cao Cao stared at him instead of Georg. Even I am not willing to fight against this creature. It looked like it was becoming easier for them to talk. Kurama watched and waited as the magic circle surrounding Yasaka stopped glowing. The QB leader of Kyoto had already ceased moving the moment he'd appeared, but now it just stared blankly at nothing. He tilted his head. He didn't think she was Brain S, but perhaps something else was keeping her from speaking. Kurama turned away from Yasaka and glanced at something off to his left. You two. Stop hiding and come out. It seems we've been found out. A small gap in the sky, like a distortion in space, appeared and two figures came out. One of them was a slender dragon with green skin and glowing eyes. It had no arms and no legs. That said, it did have large wings on its back. That's the mischievous dragon, Yulong. Cao Cao shouted. Kurama filed the name away, but most of his attention was on the smaller figure who'd walked out. He dropped from the gap in space, landed a short distance away, and approached Kurama with small steps. Tiny. That was the first thing that came to mind. This being was short, about the height of a young child. He had brilliant golden fur and a face lined with wrinkles. He carried a staff in one hand, prayer beads lined his forehead, he wore shades, and he was smoking a pipe. It was an incongruous appearance. A tail was growing out of his back. You are quite the powerhouse, the old monkey yokai said as he stared at Kurama. I never imagined there'd be someone with this kind of overwhelming power living in our world. The Buddhists are going to have a field day. What is your name? My name is Sun Wukong. Kurama nodded. You must be the reinforcements Azazel spoke of. I am indeed, though, he glanced at where Heracles had been. It looks like you don't really need my help. Kurama shrugged, prompting Sun Wukong to glance at Cao Cao, still leaning against his spear. It's been a while, hasn't it? Looks like you've grown up a bit. The great victorious fighting Buddha. I never imagined you would be confronting us as well. I hear you've been demolishing our bases and ruining our plans all over the world. Sun Wukong narrowed his eyes. I hope you realize how much trouble you are in. It took a lot of work for me to convince everyone to have these talks with the QB leader on behalf of the Heavenly Emperor, and then you went and killed her. I am not pleased. Ah ha ha, Cao Cao laughed, but it was strained. I suspect you would not be, but you can't expect us to just not take such an opportunity when we are presented with it. Sun Wukong sighed as though tired, and then, without any warning, he extended the staff he held, smacking Cao Cao in the sea with one end. The Longinus user was lifted off his feet. He flew through the air and crashed to the ground, coughing up several globs of B. Do not try my patience, boy. I am not in the mood. Kurama let the situation play out. He wasn't interested in any of this. He only had one job to do. Canoe. Why yes. Kurama turned to the little girl, who'd been gazing at him with wide eyes, and gestured her to him. She looked at the others. Asia, Kiba, Irina, Rosweiss, and now Zenevia all looked unsure themselves. If, This is the Kurama sealed inside of Naruto, right? Asia said, smiling with uncertainty. It should be, okay, right. I will not harm her. Kurama frowned. What did these people take him for? He wasn't a monster, damn it. I am merely here to help Naruto fulfill his promise. We're getting your mother back. At those words, Kanu perked up. While she didn't lose all of her hesitation, she did trot over to him, her desire to see her mother return safely overriding whatever fear she had of him. The others looked like they wanted to stop her, but they couldn't move. I wonder why no one seems capable of moving except that monkey and the dragon. I think it's your aura. It's kind of overwhelming, you know. Kurama frowned as Kanu stood before him. But I am suppressing my aura. Yeah, well, it's still leaking out. I imagine you can't suppress it enough. TCH. Annoying. Speaking out loud, he said to Kanu, follow me. You're the only one who can bring your mother back. Kanu nodded and followed Kurama as they walked over to Yasaka, whose fox form had gone slack. The QB leader was staring at Kurama with blank eyes. It was like she recognized he was a threat, but her mind wasn't cognizant enough to deal with him. Kurama looked down as Kanu bit her lip. What happened to Naruto? He is still here. Kurama placed a hand against his C. He and I have currently traded places. Do not worry. He'll be back. This jutsu only lasts 10 minutes. I see. Yasaka's fox form really was quite big. Kurama would say her fox form was about as big as his had been, maybe a bit smaller, and it was more slender. He supposed that meant her fox form had a sense of femininity about it, though he was no master on such subjects. Call out to her, Kurama instructed as he placed his hands on Kanu's shoulders. I will help amplify your power and create a link between your heart and hers. Now reach out with your voice. Okay. Kanu took a deep breath. Mother, can you hear me? Yasaka was unresponsive. Tears began streaming down Kanu's face, but she sucked them up. Mother, I promise I won't be stubborn anymore, I'll eat those fish I hate, I won't fly out of Kyoto at night, I'll do everything you ask of me, so please come back to me. Please don't leave me all alone. Kurama felt a tight throb in his C. He couldn't figure out if this throb had come from him, Naruto, or both of them. Unlike his overly sensitive friend, he did not have the same level of empathy. Now. A faint voice echoed from Yasaka. Her lips had moved, though not much. Kanu snapped her head up to look at her mother. Mother, I'm right here. Kanu is with you. Please sing that song to me again. Please teach me to dance again. Kanu will be a good girl from now on. I want to be with you. I want to stay with you. A gentle light engulfed Kanu as Kurama sent just a small sliver of his power. A bead of sweat ran down his forehead. Damn it, he had already known this, but doing delicate work like this was harder than just blasting S apart. The strain of keeping his power from blowing the girl up was giving him a headache. The QB leader soon began glowing as well, and then she shrank, her body growing smaller and smaller, until she was the size of a regular human. Then she transformed again. Now her body was no longer that of a fox. Instead, a human woman with hair spun from gold and a bosom that could match Naruto's main girl greeted their vision. Where am I? What is going on? The woman asked. Mother. Kanu rushed forward and plowed into her mother's sea, sobbing. While Yasaka still appeared confused, she hugged the crying girl and stroked her hair, a tender smile appearing on her face. Sob. Kurama twitched. Are you crying? I'm not. Sniffle, I'm not crying. Oh, gods, you are crying. As Naruto and Kurama argued, Kanu clung to her mother as though her life depended on it, and her sobs echoed out for all to hear. Devil Ninja. The battle had come to an end. Cao and the other members of the hero faction had managed to escape. Naruto had berated Kurama for not at least capturing them, but that only caused the giant fox to argue back by stating they were so far beneath him, he hadn't noticed when they left. Aside from that, he had also Heracles. Really, Naruto should be thanking him for getting rid of such an annoying character. Naruto felt a little put out by the whole ordeal since he honestly didn't get to do much. In point of fact, once the battle with Cao and the others had started, all he'd done was make some hand seals and let the others do the rest. As a prominent member of Take Action First and Ask Questions Later committee, he felt rather disappointed in himself. Everyone was exhausted after the battle finished, except for Naruto, who'd done nothing at all. That was why Naruto decided to create shadow clones and carry his friends back to the hotel. While Issei had complained that it wasn't cool for a man to princess carry another man, Naruto had shut him up by transforming the clone, carrying him into Naruko, his female version. Even then, Issei had complained a bit about his pride being hurt. Naruto had spoken with Sun Wukong for a while after they made it back, but the conversation mostly consisted of the old monkey praising his abilities and giving him a warning. According to Sun, Kurama's power was so vast that it was likely to have been felt by many powerful beings. Sun said he would not be surprised if various gods came looking into him. After all, the kind of power he possessed was definitely a threat to the balance of this world. Something like that. Everyone but Naruto was still tired the next day. Kiba had to drag his body out of bed, and Irina had even used Naruto's shoulder as a pillow during breakfast. That said, they did perk up after some coffee, and once all of them had eaten, they were able to get some souvenir shopping done and even see Kyoto Tower. Naruto had already seen a version of it before, but it was a lot more exciting seeing the top of Kyoto Tower without the threat of death. Irina and Asia had been particularly excited. The smiles they'd worn were something that wouldn't be leaving his memories anytime soon. However, after a good few hours, it was finally time to leave Kyoto. The Kuo Academy students all gathered at the train station. Kanu and Yasaka were there when they arrived, having apparently waited for them. While most people didn't spare a glance at Kanu, Yasaka had the eyes of nearly everyone on her. Of course, she was a hot blonde woman, so this was understandable. Naruto-sama. Kanu's eyes lit up as she called out his name. She was holding her mother's hand. You don't need to use such a formal tone with me, Naruto said. Just Naruto is fine. And Naruto, then. Kanu wore a shy smile as she blushed. Naruto just wanted to scoop her into a big hug. Are you going to come back to Kyoto? Of course I will. Naruto knelt down and grinned as he thumped his C. I hope I can count on you to show me around some more when I come back. Oh, of course. I will definitely show you even more of Kyoto's historic sites. I'll be in your care when the time comes. A high-pitched whistle echoed from the train. It looked like they would be leaving soon. Azazel-sama, Naruto-sama, Sekiruote-sama and everyone else, you have my sincerest apologies for the trouble I've caused. Also, I would like to thank you. I am prepared to speak with Leviathan-sama and the victorious Fighting Buddha. It has been my hope for a long time now that we can strengthen ourselves through mutual understanding and cooperation. I do not wish to see Kyoto terrorized again. I'll leave everything to you, then, Azazel said with a smile as they shook hands. Just before they could let go, Seraphal placed her hand on top of theirs. Yufufu, we might be returning home for now, but later on, Yasaka-san, the monkey Oyachan, and I will enjoy the sights and sounds of Kyoto together. There wasn't much more time to exchange pleasantries, so after saying the goodbyes, everyone climbed onto the bullet train. Kanu was still on the platform. As Naruto looked out the window, he found her waving at him. With a smile, he waved back, causing her to wave her hand with even bigger motions. She looked like a human windmill. You really do have a thing for kids, huh? Asked Irina. I've always liked kids, Naruto admitted as he scratched his head. But I think a part of that is because I never really had much of a childhood myself. I was pretty hated growing up. Nobody would give me the time of day, and I was always alone. At some point, I decided that I wanted to have a big family with lots of children. However, devils apparently have a low birth rate. He smiled at her, and though it was not bitter, he did feel a bit sad. I guess a part of the reason I'm so soft on them is because I feel like spoiling and pampering them makes me feel a bit like a parent. Irina's eyes were wide as he spoke. Standing beside her, Zenevia, who would be traveling with them to Kuo, cupped her chin. I had no idea, Irina muttered. Naruto shrugged. Most people don't. I think only Rias, Ravel, and Koneko know this about me. Well, now you do too. The bullet train doors soon shut, and there was a loud squealing as it began moving down the tracks. Kanu was still waving to them as she ran along the train. Naruto masked his frown when he saw that she was crying. A lot had happened during these past 4 days, so he guessed it made sense that she'd be sad by all this. Kanu was still just a kid, after all. As the train began picking up speed, a loud cry went out. "Nu!" Everyone turned around to find Issei clawing at the door as though he wanted to pry it open. While Asia and Irina wore looks of shock, Kiba looked rather bemused, while Zenevia just seemed contemplative. There was a strange gleam in her eyes as she stared at Issei. "What's wrong, eyes?" Naruto asked his friend. Issei turned around and, with tears streaming down his face, he grabbed onto Naruto's shirt. "I forgot to ask Yasaka-san to show me her bee as a reward." As a trail of sweat ran down Naruto's scalp, he realized that no matter how powerful his friend became, some things about him would never change. Well, he supposed that was a good thing. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.